Hey, what's poppin', sexies? It's your boy Tacho here, and we back doing it old school with the OG intro, if y'all remember that one. Okay, so we have a requested video today from our friend Static E. Now, shoutouts to Static E, of course. He shows up to the live streams every now and then. So he says, okay, how about instead of the third unit tier list video in a row, guilty as charged, you can make a video about how to read skills. I think what he means by how to read skills is how to tell if a unit is going to be good, like how to read them in terms of meta terms, like how effective are they going to be. And then also maybe talk about different conditions on perfs and skills and what archetypes or roles it encourages certain units to play. Nothing personal, it just feels like all the Feytubers make tier lists all day, every day, and it's getting a little dull. Alright, well, that's not necessarily my fault. I'm not the one putting out like 50 tier list videos. Look right here. We have Oblivion having a requested video or having a recommended video, and it's a tier list about all of the refines that we just got. But the real person who is to blame for all this is Joel. You want to point fingers, point at Phaeology. Every video is a tier list with him. Alright, not that we don't like it though. Okay, so anyways, I agree, I don't like tier lists. I replied to him, and I will do more variety, so that's what we're going to do today. This was also requested from a couple of other people, too, back when I started doing, like, daily videos at the start of the month. So, people really want to know how to read skills and tell whether or not things are going to be good, what to look out for, and that is exactly what I'm going to explain today. So, you see the trailer, and you want to see, like, whether or not units are going to be good without having to use them. This is going to be your guide on how to do that. Let's start things off by doing a little comparison here. We're going to compare an old school God Sword to a recent God Sword. So Baby Mia released on April 7th, 2022. And this Summer Fiorm came out this year, July 7th. So not actually that big of a gap between them. It's only about a year and a couple of months. However, this Summer Fiorm is just way better. So let's take a look at what Mia does here. She's got -1 special trigger. If a skill compares her speed to the ally's speed or foe's speed, treats her speed as if granted +10. That was a really ahead of its time effect that they gave her. They just built in Phantom Speed to her weapon. Even nowadays, when we're getting that built in, it's usually Phantom Speed Light, where it only does 7 points instead of 10. They actually gave her the full-on Phantom Speed, which is really cool. Then also, at the start of turn, if she's in 2 spaces of an ally, she gets Null Follow-Up and Dodge for 1 turn. Also, this is really good. They gave them to her as start-of-turn bonuses instead of, like, actual built-in effects. If her weapon had Null Follow-Up and 40% speed-based DR, it would not be as good as this, and the reason why is because now we're starting to see skills, like Prime 4, for example, that actually want you to have active bonuses. So they actually really were ahead of their time with this Mia. They gave her full Phantom Speed. They gave her 2 start-of-turn bonuses. Both very good effects as well for God Swords to have. Null Follow-Up and Dodge. And then they also tacked on the classic all stats of 5 there. So this was really good at the time. It's actually kind of still not too bad right now. The problem, though, is the quality of effects she's getting. So Null Follow-Up and Dodge, both really good, but also really easy to outsource. Like Null Follow-Up, how many different ways are there to get Null Follow-Up right now? Let's see, Legendary Alencia gives it. There's also Caden Lindy. There's also Infantry Speed Tactic, Infantry Null Follow-Up, and there's the Captain Seal. It's also a Sacred Seal now, so there's also really good B skill. There's Physical Null Follow-Up, which can give it and then give damage reduction cut. So Null Follow-Up just has better ways to be obtained right now than on Weapon, which was not the case when this Mia came out. So times have changed a little bit. You want to be paying more attention to the quality and how difficult it is to obtain the skills that your units are getting. So for this Summer Fiorm, we take a look at what she's getting. So we have -1 special trigger. We got Null Sea Disrupt against ranged enemies, which is crazy. Now, Null Sea Disrupt is not easy to get. The only way to get it is from Null Sea Disrupt 4 in the B slot passive. And the B slot passive is one of the more hotly contested passives in the game. There's a lot of good B skills, so you may be competing with Null C4 against other crazy stuff. So just having that built in is massively an improvement over Mia. Then she also gets all stats of 5. Then she does this here. This was just like such a dick move that they gave this to her. So she inflicts a penalty on the enemy's attack and speed equal to 20% of her own speed at the start of combat. If we just take a look at her base speed here. So she's at 46. Let's assume you trait fruited her to get plus speed. So 50 speed. That's already 5 points of damage, or 5 points of attack and speed cut on the foe. So essentially, her weapon is giving her speed up 10, defense and res up 10, and attack up 5. That's already, again, better than Mia. Mia does have phantom speed, but that is fake speed. It's not actual plus 10 speed. It's only for the check. Whereas this Summer Fiorm is legitimately getting speed 10 and then defense and res 10. You could equate that to. And I'm not even counting for her other skills that are boosting her speed, by the way. We're only just looking at the base speed with the super boon there, unmerged as well. So you're going to see a lot higher than -5 with this. She also has guard built in, which is another cool one. I mean, what other ways would we get guard on this unit? Like giving her guard 4 in the B skill, or like seal attack 4 or something like that. Or even a double stance in the A skill, but you don't really want to run those. You would rather run skills like attack speed finish 4 that are giving you healing and like all these extra stats and bonus points of damage on triggering specials, or even bonus doubler 4 now, which could give you all stats up 10, which is just crazy. So yeah, there's better ways to really optimize your builds with the passives that we can run depending on like how good the innate kit is on these units. Then she also has 5 flat true DR when the enemies trigger her special, which her special is really good too. So non-pierceable DR, another thing that's very rare and very uncommon, non-pierceable DR. There is godlike reflexes, but it's kind of hard to maintain godlike reflexes, whereas this is only a 2-hit cooldown, so you got -1 and then times pulse 4 and you're good to go. Like right there, you're just juicing on the spot. So she's got 10 points of non-pierceable DR against ranged or non-ranged enemies, melee types, and then 30% non-pierceable DR against ranged types. So it does have diminishing returns, but it does work on both types of enemies, so that is good. Also, when she triggers her special, she gets augmented damage, and then if her special is ready, she gets distant counter. So again, like I said, with difficult skills to outsource, distant counter, you cannot get that anywhere but the A skill, unless you're a dragon and you can run the seal. So having built-in distant counter, I can't even stress how good that is. You don't have to run Prime 4 or Attack Speed Solo 4 on, or Solo 3 on this unit. You're free to run like Bonus Doubler 4 or Finish 4 or whatever you want to get the stats. And then she's already coming built in with these things. She doesn't have null follow-up, unlike Mia. However, that's fine. As we explained, it's easy to outsource null follow-up now, and she doesn't really need dodge because her B skill is completely free and open. So it would be impossible for this Mia to do all of the things that Fiorm does. The amount of skills you would have to give up here, like you'd have to give up her B skill for null C4. That means she couldn't run like a dodge-based B skill here. You would have to give up her A skill to get like specifically distant counter, Prime 4, or attack speed solo 3. Distant attack speed solo 3, rather. So it's just like, it's easy to tell how these units are going to perform just based on the quality of effects that they're getting and how difficult or easy it is to outsource. So pay attention to that when you're reading skills. Okay, this Asker is an example of a unit that can be an all-rounder. So when we're seeing units like this, there's actually a couple of units we're going to take a look at in this same category, but I want to start with Asker first. So this guy is really good because he can do just about everything you want him to. I mean, he's, like I said, he's an all-rounder. He can fill many different roles. So we take a look at his weapon here. He's got -1 special trigger. He's got all stats up 5. He gets a guaranteed follow-up. He inflicts guard. He's got 20% true DR based on defense. And then if his defense is better than the foe's defense, he gets DR against AoE specials equal to 1.5 times the difference between stats. So this weapon is very conducive to both player phasing and enemy phasing, where he's getting a lot of protection. He gets the guaranteed follow-up. He gets the -1. He gets the all stats up 5 there. And it's easy to get nullified DR on him. You can run Special Spiral 4. You can give him Flare now for sustain. Like, there's a lot of good skills you can give to this guy. They didn't exist when he came out. But when he came out, he was good for the same exact reason. He's a very good all-arounder. At the time, we were giving him close reversal so he could be like a dual phaser. We would give him Special Spiral. Was Special Spiral 4 out when this guy came out? I can't remember. I don't think it was. But we would still run Special Spiral on him so he could loop Bonfire over and over, and he could just nuke with that. And then, of course, his C skill combined with his Duo skill is what makes him really crazy. So Resonant Blades, Resonant Shields, and Double Pulsing, and all stats of 6 when you combine this with the Duo skill. And it's a reusable Duo skill as well. So this guy does it all. He can enemy phase, he can player phase, he can support. You can turn him into a save unit with Brave Sorin. Like, just the sky's the limit with him. He does everything. He may not be the best at any one particular thing, but he's good at all sorts of different things, and that's what we're looking for right now in units. We want all-rounders that can just fill a multitude of roles. Now, that is exemplified again by this unit here. So we have Legendary Hinoka. You look at her weapon, and it's just, like, so outrageously focused. It's hyper offense, this weapon here. She gets Kanto 1. We have -1 special trigger. We got double effectiveness on armor and flyers. We got attack and speed of 6, 20% true damage based on speed, half a null follow-up, and then also fire sweep. Like, this is everything you could ever want on a player phaser, right? So very good stuff. Effective against armor on range is very nice because that gives them effective damage on far savers. The half a null follow-up, the fire sweep, like most armored units cannot get null sea disrupt. There's only one that can, and that is the Ascended Air, or not Ascended Air, Ascended Fiorm. So, and then even then, she's got color advantage on that Fiorm, and you could just blow her up with one dead eye if you got it pre-charged. So, like, we can't really ask for better for player phasing, and then they just went and did this. So you look at her C skill, now she's giving support too. So we get special acceleration to all allies in 2 spaces. We get charge to all flying allies in 2 spaces and herself. And then this too. Like, I don't even know why this is here. Like, does anyone know why this is here? This is just overkill. So now she also has this crazy rain effect where she does speed, defense, and res -5 on enemy infantry, armor, and cav types in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on her. Pointless. Like, she was already tuned well enough. They did not need to do this, but they did. So here is an example of a unit that's hyper-focused towards player phasing, but then is still fulfilling a support role. So, like I said, we're looking for these all-arounders that do multiple things as opposed to only doing one particular thing really good. Okay, this Brave Corin over here, I'm not the biggest fan of her, not gonna lie, but she is a far save unit, and she's a very competent one, obviously. She's doing a lot of stat drops on the enemies. Her A skill has built-in distant counter, which is nice. Even though dragon types like her can run the distant counter seal, that's not the biggest deal. Like, now you can just run a better seal instead. So it is nice that she still has this built in. And it gives her flat DR on brave attacks. Brave attacks are very powerful, and there's not many ways to stop actually, there's no way to stop brave attacks. So, yeah, what else is there to really say? This is very good for far saving, but what's really going to make this unit age well is this. So she sets up the Divine Vein Stones, which gives defense and res up 6, cuts special damage by 10 points, and cuts AoE specials by 50% to all your allies within the Divine Vein Stones. Corin herself doesn't necessarily need to use that. Like, if ever there comes a time where she's no longer one of the premier far savers, or near savers, or whatever, you can still run her on the team to just set this up, and then your other units are eating well from this, like your better tanks. Your units in the front lines are getting a lot better from this, and it just combos very nicely. Like, you have her as a far saver protecting a near unit, like, who would be good in close quarters combat that can, like, pull off the front line role really well. Like Cormag and also Har, I guess, you give them Guidance 4, you give them Gambit 4, and then just throw them in front. Allow your other units to jump into them, and then have them protected by Divine Vein Stones and ranged threats with her having, this Corin having far save. So, again, like, here's an example of a bait unit that's offering a crazy amount of support, and that's where we're trending in this game right now. We want units that do multiple things instead of just one. Okay, Bride Catri is here. I pulled her up because a lot of us actually underestimated her when she released. Like, I remember I might have said she was a skip when she came out on my trailer for her. If you guys want to, like, double back and check what I said about her on the trailer breakdown, this was the main thing I thought she was going to be good for. She grants basically ground orders and air orders to allies in 2 spaces. Now, at the time this unit came out, that was still pretty popular. Like, orders skills were still being ran, and they only worked within 1 space. So I thought this was going to be the main selling point to her, completely dismissing triangle attack as even a thing. Now, you read this on paper, it doesn't look very good. So if the unit with triangle attack initiates combat and they have 2 or more allies in 2 spaces that also have triangle attack, then they get a brave attack. It's very convoluted. It's difficult to really wrap your head around how this is going to play out in combat until you actually use it for yourself and see how easy it is to get. Now, this would be an example of a unit that we really needed to playtest as opposed to just read them on paper. Because it's not easy to see how good this is going to be on paper, I don't think. And you can double check. I don't think any of the Fatesubers were, like, they caught on to this on first glance. Like, we had to use her to really see. So it's not always easy to tell, like, if a unit is going to be amazing or not. But if we just look at this, it's just a brave attack, and you're giving brave attack support. Like, that itself is obviously very strong. Now, we're going to get an answer to brave attacks, I promise you. Like, I don't know when it's coming, but if they were able to sell Kanto Control, they are going to sell an answer to brave attacks. And that's probably going to make this unit go extinct whenever that happens. But it's coming. They're going to give us a passive skill that's inheritable that just, like, if the enemies attack twice, they don't. Like, that's going to be the effect. So keep an eye out for when that comes. But for the time being, brave attacks are, like, the most powerful thing you can do for the player phase. Alright, so here's Legendary Shez. I actually did not like this unit on release. I'm going to explain why. So her weapon here, first of all, it's only got 8 might. It is a brave attack weapon, but it doesn't have the full 14 might for a ranged type. So that was already one thing I didn't like. She gets speed up 5. She gets the brave attack. She nullifies her own penalties, which I actually like this. I like that they gave that to her. And then if her speed is better than foe speed, she gets special acceleration on hit. And then she has dagger 7, and that's it. Like, this is a very bare bones weapon, man. It's not really doing enough here. It lacks -1 special trigger. It lacks null follow-up. It lacks DR as well. Like, there's no DR on her, so she has no protection. She's just relying on killing the foes in 2 hits. It's hard for her to get to lethality without the -1, and she doesn't nullify guard either, so if they have guard, then she can't really get to lethality. And she also just doesn't cut DR naturally. So, like, all of these things, I was considering comparing her to Legendary Veronica. The difference was night and day at the time. And then Veronica also is a Cav type, so she moves 3 spaces, and she had access to Kanto. Like, it just felt like a no-brainer to me that Veronica was miles better than this unit on release. Now, of course, that's no longer the case. A lot of the issues of this Shez have been fixed by some of the skills that have been coming out lately. So, for example, this skill fixes 2 of the biggest issues I had with her. Gives her null follow-up, and then also allows her to cut DR in half per hit. So, that's something not to overlook. I mean, now we got to pay attention to movement types and also weapon types to pay attention to what sorts of skills these units can inherit nowadays. A lot of the power creep now is coming from the passive skills, so you want to be very mindful of unit movement types and weapon types, and make sure you're aware of what skills you can inherit, how you can clean up, like, some of the weaknesses on the kits, and things of that nature. So, just another food for thought there. Okay, we have Brave Marth brought up here because I wanted to just bury this guy. Okay, so he wants to play up a role as being a Vantage Godsword, and they gave him absolutely nothing on his remix that would allow him to do that. So that's how I know he sucks. He just gets all stats. Like, that's everything part of his remix here. We look at what he gets. He gets all stats up 5, plus the highest bonus on each stat between allies and unit within 2 spaces. So you could equate that to just being all stats up 11 if they have all stats up 6. That's not really helping him in any way. They also didn't make this a more lenient condition. He needs allies to total 60 bonuses to get his Vantage, which is I mean, Vantage is still really strong, but you're not going to see this too easily. He is able to give everybody all stats of 6 when he procs his special, but they didn't even let him do that in the right way. They gave him Nullify Guard. We don't really need that on him. I mean, he's already got -1, and then you just give him Times Pulse 4, and he's cooking, right? Like, he's always using his special. So they didn't need to do that. What they needed to give this guy was Null Sea Disrupt, so he could always get the Vantage off. They needed to give him either a Brave Attack, or they could have given him Nullify Enemy DR, so he would be able to get the Vantage and finish the foes off right there. And they also needed to make this a more lenient condition, which they did not. So all of that, like, just plays up. And then his refine was just stats. Like, we're not looking for stats anymore. We are looking for effects that these units can do. Okay, Dagger. Why did I pull up Dagger? Oh, I just wanted to compare her B skill to, like, this is more of a power creep thing. So back in the day when this Dagger came out, this was like the pinnacle of B skills that you could get, and it was exclusive to her. So Null Follow-Up and Speed and Defense -5. Non-inheritable, of course, because back then that was just like breaking the game. Nowadays, we just get that, but better, and it's inheritable. So how about Speed, the same stat drops, also Null Follow-Up, also cut DR in half, also inherit to all infantry types. So, like, I mean, that just goes to show how crazy and how far the game has gone. Okay, Thief Nina, we have her pulled up to just give some mention to mobility. Now, mobility is the most powerful thing in this game, so another thing you want to watch out for is how many spaces can units move, and also how many spaces can they cancel away, or how many spaces can they allow other units to move, in the case of these two things that we're going to look at. So this Thief Nina has the highest reach in the game with the highest canto in the game. You pop her duo skill and she's able to move 1 extra space. Then she also has Canto Recall, which allows her to move back to her original space. So she hits from 6 spaces away, and then she cantos back 4 spots. Like, that is the most insane, unfair amount of reach possible. She can also nullify DR with lethality. She's very easy to build up with, like, Rally Spectrum, which can give her the -2 for this. And if you got Duo Asker, you can pulse her twice, so she just gets the lethality right there. She does a lot of damage, so it's mostly, like, the amount of damage she does is good, but it's mostly the combo of her moving 4 spaces and having Canto Recall. Yes, Canto Control is a very good counter to her. However, if you don't have Canto Control against this unit, you're just boned. So that is something you got to keep in mind, man. If you're going to run a team for Summoner Duels or Aether Raids and you don't have Canto Control, this unit is going to teabag all over you. Alright, then we have also the Dagger here. This unit is able to grant mobility with Pathfinder, so she herself has it, and then when you ally support her with somebody, they are also going to be able to get Pathfinder there, and this is permanent, unlike the Duo Dagger. So Duo Dagger's Duo skill gives everyone Pathfinder, but it's only for 1 turn, whereas this is just every turn. So this is a really wild amount of mobility support, and again, Canto, for some reason, can interact with Pathfinder. So you could actually pull back more spaces if your Canto would allow it, and you're moving through allies with Pathfinder. So mobility is something you also want to watch out for, as we said. And then finally, Guidance 4 and anything similar to this where you're allowing allies to jump 2 spaces ahead of your ally. Like, just the amount of movement shenanigans you can do with this. The amount of squares you can control in Summoner Duels is just outrageous with this. So again, like I said, I mean, just being able to cover squares, being able to move, mobility is just the most broken thing in this game. Like, this Nina right here is not necessarily a crazy player phaser. She's good. But again, like I said, what sells her is the amount of mobility that she can do. So it's just a combination of player phasing and also being able to get the hell out of the way and make it hard for the enemies to reach you. Or you can just dive bomb kamikaze at them with Guidance 4. Like, a bunch of units with Special Spiral 4 have their pre-charged specials. They're jumping in and they're just KOing everything within reach. So you want to be able to access as many spaces as you can. And a lot of the power creep this year has came from the passives. Like, all these tier 4 passives that we're looking at now are like Guidance 4, Physical Null Follow-Up, there's Special Spiral 4. All these things are inheritable. So you're free to give them to a lot of units and just make them even better. There's also like Gambit 4, which is an offensive and defensive type of passive you can run. Gives you DR and a bunch of true damage. So all of these things you got to keep in mind while looking at your units and when you're looking at the trailer, trying to tell what makes a unit good. Hopefully these like tidbits of knowledge will give you some more advice on what to look out for when you're looking at these units. So that's going to wrap us up for this video, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed it. This is your boy Tacho signing out. So again, leave any requests you've got in the comment section down below. And I will catch you guys again on the flip side.